The following program on KROC is sponsored and paid for by Meshbesher and Spence.
And live in the studio, I mentioned his name already.
Zach
I guess
Bauer's
it was off the
here.
air. Zach Bauer, yeah.
How you
From
doing?
Meshbesher and Spence. We're doing very well. How about you?
It's great outside. It's
Yes,
nice.
it is.
It is.
That Arctic air is gone, and
I know. Now we're back into, October air. Well, I guess
No,
more like November air.
more January-ish,
Almost.
but
No,
it feels
okay.
good.
almost like freezing.
That's right.
That's great.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today?
The new law that was passed on January 1, 2015, or went into effect on January 1, 2015, is called the Second Chance Law.
The Second Chance Law.
It's a expansion of some of the expungement law that was currently in effect.
All right, well, explain that to those of us who aren't very
So
litigious.
expungement law is the ability for a person that has been convicted of a crime to be able to come back to the court and ask that record be sealed from public view.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of on two different levels where it becomes important. The first is being able to seal the court records down at the courthouse. You go down there and type in your name, and a record pops up if you have one. Rich, if you have
okay.
one.
Yeah,
Pops
it'll
up,
be there
yeah.
forever.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be there forever. But you can get that sealed. We always used to be able to get that sealed even before this new law was affected.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had pled guilty, even though you could seal that record at the courthouse, you could not seal the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension records when you were fingerprinted. Those records always still remained. So a lot of times a person would get some relief from the court records, but the BCA records would still be there. Most businesses do their background checks not through the courthouse, but through the BCA. So this law now allows us to not only seal those court records, but also seal the BCA records. So it's more of a complete remedy for a lot of these people to be able to truly be able to tell people, I don't have a criminal record, or I've rehabilitated myself and this should be sealed. So when you go in for a job application situation, you're not telling the future employer, I don't have a record, but then they pull up this BCA website and they actually see that you were.
It might have been back from
Could
1975
be from
or something.
a long time ago. I mean, we have a lot of situations where people are committed an offense when they're in their late teens, 18, 19, 20, some type of minor theft offense, and now they're 27, 28 out in the workforce, and they know it's causing them problems.
So the main group of people that this law would be helpful for are people who are looking for jobs,
Absolutely. People that
or
are
like mortgages,
People
or
that are looking for jobs, mortgages, looking for housing. A lot of times some housing facilities, whether they be apartments or townhomes.
Business loans.
Business
anything.
loans. Anybody in that area that's looking to kind of further things with education or with employment or housing, and then they see that the reason why they're not getting these things is because of this record, then they should take this step, especially now.
But I'm thinking if you're somebody who's renting out space, you want to know. I don't want it to be sealed. I want to know what this history is. So does the person have to show that they have? I don't know, that they're not the dumb person who broke that law?
Yeah, absolutely. So
How do you show
because
that?
There is a right, and this is one of the things that the court balances when the court decides whether or not they're going to grant expungement. Just because you're eligible for one doesn't mean you're going to get one. The individual that comes in, that's the petitioner, potentially my client, would need to show to kind of a clear and convincing evidence standard, 75%, give or take, that they've rehabilitated themselves, that they have made this transition from what they used to be maybe as kind of a not so smart
the big dummy that they used to be.
Ultimately, I've gone to college, judge. I've stayed free of any type of interaction with law enforcement. I'm now got a wife, a family, these types of things, and I'm looking. This is the reason why I need to have this expungement, because I'm applying for these jobs and I just can't get it. They're pointing to this theft of batteries that occurred at Target when I was 19 years old. And then the judge looks at, obviously, a couple different factors. Number one, have you shown that you've rehabilitated yourself? And secondly, the judge also will weigh the interest in the public in knowing that record. Because there certainly is. I mean, as an employer myself, I would certainly want to know if a person has a criminal record. But at the same point, there's the ability for people to be able to say, yeah, that was at a different time in my life, and I've made some substantial changes, and should that misdemeanor theft really be hurting me now?
So the bigger point, though, is just that there is a judgment of the person's rehabilitation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there a gap that from the time of, that it has to be at least 5 years from the alleged crime or whatever.
The legislature has put forth kind of their minimum levels when it comes to being eligible. So, for instance, on a misdemeanor level offense, once you've completed your probationary period, which is usually 1 to 2 years, you've got to be crime-free for 2 additional years. So in that situation, we're only looking back 4 years, potentially, from when the date of the incident was. And it'll be interesting to see how judges kind of look at that time frame now. Yeah. This is a new law, how it will be enacted, how it will ultimately be, how judges will use it. It'll be interesting. But right now, quite frankly, the time frames aren't very long. If even a person was convicted of a low-level felony theft, they might be eligible for an expungement 5 years after they're discharged from probation. So this is for a lot of people that maybe have had this 5, 6, 7, 8 years in the past, and now they're coming up on their time frames where they're eligible. But it also is something to consider if you are charged with a crime, the idea of making sure that crime is actually eligible for this in the future. I'm going through that a lot with people that are kind of in that 18 to 20 range right now in my office, understanding that we need to try to make sure that some of these charges fit into the category of being eligible later on, with the idea that you'll be able to come in maybe 7 or 8 years from now and be able to show successful rehabilitation.
So some of the wild cards on that are infractions that are eligible or not eligible.
Right.
The amount of time that has gone past as well.
Correct.
Okay. Interesting.
DUIs, are they on there?
They actually are, and I am interested to see how that's going to be, how the court's going to deal with that, because DUIs are enhanceable, as well as some domestic situations are enhanceable.
And what do you mean by enhanceable?
Meaning that if you pick up more than within a period of 10 years, the government can enhance the charges.
Okay.
So
I see.
It'll be interesting to see if, for instance, if I had a DUI 5 years ago and I'm looking for an expungement and you're eligible for it under the statute, how will that affect the government and being able to proceed with it treating it as a second offense if, for instance, 3 years from now you get another one?
So, well, look at my record. It's not on there.
It will be interesting.
Yeah.
It will be interesting.
All right. The second chance or expungement law. It actually went into effect last week. Or,
in fact, January 1st.
2 weeks ago now. Yeah. All right. If anybody needs to get a hold of you at Meshbesher and Spence, Zach, what do they do?
They can contact us via phone at 507-280-8090 or get to us online at www.meshbesher.com.
Excellent. All right, Zach, have a great week.
You guys too.
Zach Bauer from Meshbesher and Spence.